Hello, everyone. How are we all doing today? Yes, we are back on the Azure Diner series. And of course, today I am here with none other than my special friend, who is also an MVP for Microsoft Azure, Raphael. Let's welcome Raphael to the house, everyone. All right. All right. So before I proceed, let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I am Promise Uche Nwanchukwu. I'm an MVP for the Azure category, and I'm also a community leader for the Nigerian Azure group. Right? It's interesting. We've been doing a lot of major things recently. In fact, we recently concluded our event. Would I call it a conference, our Azure Nigeria conference? We concluded that late last year in October. And the last time I also had a special discussion, or will I call it a very knowledgeable discussion with my MVP friend in the house today, Raphael. I will give Raphael some little bit of opportunity to introduce himself for those of you who don't know Raphael yet. Raphael, please, you have the stage. Please tell me more about yourself. Let our
Hey
audience
guys,
know.
hey guys, hey guys. We eat Asia, we sleep Asia, we drink Asia. That's the summary of myself.
Nice. And I mean, this is very interesting. Also because Raphael has didn't just start leading the community today. He was one of the very first leaders we have for the community. And also, as you can see, he's always been pushing Microsoft Azure from the get-go. And funny enough, today we have this interesting topic we want to speak about. And please, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop in the comment section. We're going to be going through that and we're going to be giving you feedback on the question. Last time we spoke about an interesting topic, which was managed identities. But today we have something different in mind. And what we have different in mind today is what? Implementing and managing storage in Azure. And of course, like I said, we have MVP Raphael in the house to help us shed more light on this and give us some insight onto how you can implement and manage your storage in Azure. But before we proceed, let's take a look at the resource we'll be using. We are actually making use of the Microsoft Learn, which is, of course, a public facing article where everyone can, refer to. But the difference here is we are not just going to be talking about the article, we are going to be giving you some practical knowledge based on our experiences in the field. Right. So, of course, I'm going to be tapping from the wisdom and the knowledge of Raphael here. And let's see how this all goes. I'll proceed to share my screen so that you all can see what I see. All right. Yes, I believe my screen should be visible to everyone now. Awesome. Okay, so we are starting with implementing and managing storage in Azure. Raphael, when the word storage comes to your mind, what do you think? What goes through your mind when somebody tells you storage in Azure?
Okay, promise. First of all, I remember the way we approached it last time. I think we used real life scenario. When storage comes into my mind, the first thing I think about is my kitchen. Okay, so now promise, I cannot go and buy tomatoes and just throw it on the floor. I'll
Yeah,
have to keep it somewhere. So if you say that you're using the cloud, there has to be a place to keep things. Okay, I mean, I'm speaking on a general, from a general perspective. So Azure storage is that thing that Microsoft has provided for you to be able to store any items that you want to store with regards to Microsoft Cloud.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that, Raphael. And I think it's a beautiful thing to know that storage is very key to almost any implementation you want to do. Do you want to build websites? You need somewhere to store your files. Do you want to build your resources, like your AML resources? You need somewhere to store some of the artifacts that we built while you are modeling you're doing your models. Speak about it. Storage is something that cuts across almost any implementation you want to do in Azure. All right. Now, one of the beautiful things you have to know when it comes to implementing storage is that this is a cloud storage solution. You don't have to bother about setting up the server yourself. I mean, Microsoft already did that for us, right? So, I mean, that is one beautiful thing about it. And as Raphael just mentioned, when it comes to storage, you think of keeping things. Like he said, kitchen comes to his mind. Now, Raphael, when you're looking at the Azure storage, we have some basic components in the Azure Storage account. Can you give me some few hints on some of the components we can see inside the Azure Storage account?
Okay, so let me take it like this. Okay, assuming I've just created my storage account, if I move down to data options, I have a place for me to store blob, which is unstructured data. Let's assume that, no, I'm sure that we all have one or two things in our computer. We have movies, we have PDFs, we have things that are not organized. Now, let me tell you, anything that is not in a rows and column, okay, it's considered as unstructured. Okay, rows
Yeah.
and column data will be structured. So where do you store your movies if you are if you decide to have a startup, you're using the Azure cloud and your startup uses a lot of storage? Where do you store those movies? Yeah, you have the blob. Okay, so you have blob, you have file, you have queues, you have about 4 or 5 different okay, so let me be specific. You have blob, okay,
Yeah.
you have file, you have
Yeah.
queue, you have table. So
Yeah.
whatever the category of data that you have, there's a place to store it. Now, queue is for messaging. So let's assume that you want to store IoT data and you're using Azure Cloud. Yes, you go to queue. Now, let's assume that you have NoSQL data. NoSQL. If you have SQL, you have NoSQL. You are storing NoSQL data. You store it in table. Okay. You're storing unstructured data. You store it in the containers, in the blob storage. So yes, those are. I hope I've answered your question. Sorry if I overstretched.
Awesome. That's really, really nice. Like, I mean, the funny thing, I think while you were speaking, something came to my mind. And what came to my mind was letting the audience know that we are not just reading this, but we are actually giving you experiences, right? We
Yes.
are giving you concepts from knowledge we've gained by our practical skills, or let me say, implementing these things. And it would interest you to know that Raphael, while he was trying to explain, had explained everything on this page on my screen, even without, giving you some theoretical form or something like that. So you can imagine the abundance of knowledge, which he has been able to body. All right. Awesome replies, Raphael. And
Thank you.
just to
Promise.
point to what you spoke about, I mean, we have from what you can see on the share screen, we have the structured, unstructured data, and the virtual machine data. And you also spoke about the NoSQL, you spoke about the messaging, which the queue, the tables or SQL will make use of, right? And then it is also interesting for the files you spoke about. I remember I was doing an implementation one time and I needed some form of live storage data, right, from that application. And then in that application, Azure File Share was mounted in the application to store the logs and to store some form of data. And it's interesting to note that even while storing the logs, you can do this both on Windows OS and also on Linux. So
Yes.
the storage account file share or the Azure storage is not just limited to, say, one particular OS. It is, I would say, it is not really dependent on any platform because you can make use of it on any OS, right?
Mm,
So
right.
that's one of the interesting things about the Azure storage. And you can see here, it's just generally telling us about what is the differences between the virtual machine data. You can see here, it says virtual machine data storage includes disks and files. Disks are persistent block storage for Azure IaaS virtual machines. Files are fully managed file shares in the cloud. And just like I just mentioned recently, we made use of these same files for mounting. We mounted these files in containers in a Kubernetes clusters
Mm,
so that we can
right.
be able to write the logs of the application directly to the file share. I mean, isn't that amazing, right? And then Raphael
Right.
spoke about unstructured data. You can see this is the least organized. Unstructured data may not have a clear relationship. The format of unstructured data is referred to as what? Non-relational. So if you're
Right.
into data, you would have an idea of what non-relational means. And also for structured data, this is stored in a what? Relational format that has a shared schema. So amazing, amazing things. And then if you're looking at where to implement or how structured, unstructured virtual machine data are made use of, well, for the very first thing, virtual machine data are made use of in the virtual machines. Unstructured data, you can make use of them in your Azure Data Lake Storage and stuff like that, or your HDFS, which is the Hadoop distributed file system. And also for your structured data, you can make use of them in your Azure Cosmos DB. Awesome, awesome. So why don't we talk about the various tiers we have on the storage account? So Raphael, so we all know, yes, we have basically two major tiers, right, in the storage account tier structure. Now, can you tell us what is the difference between the standard and then the premium storage account tier?
Okay, so Microsoft has made it in such a way that if you want to do, there are certain categories of activities that you want to do that are not available in the standard one. But the standard one can actually perform every most business activities. So if you want certain I mean, if you want to work with file shares that require extra low latency, then storage will not be available for that. If you want to save costs, that's when you use standard. But if you know that you are an enterprise, you are an enterprise client, okay, that requires low latency, high availability, the best option for you would actually be premium, the premium tier, okay, because it has more features. You can duplicate and do other stuff with it. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And then you can see that basically another difference, just as Raphael said, the standard gives you lower cost, whereas the premium gives you what? Higher cost. But also you have a higher throughput value. That means the amount of data that can go in and out of your premium storage is kind of higher compared to what you have for standard. And therefore, when you talk of latency, you find a very minimal value for your premium storage as compared to that of your standard storage. The truth is that each and every one of these tier, they have a unique perspective, right? Depending on how you would love to use them. So you need to understand the basics between the two for you to know when to make use of them. Yes, and Raphael has something to say about that. Raphael, please can you proceed?
When you mention latency again, it made me remember something that, okay, so lately I've been entering Uber a lot. So when you get into Uber and you want to pay the guy, he will say, "Oga, please pay me with OPay." You know, so it kept me wondering that why is this so for like a month now, almost every week I enter Uber. So then I came home, I was like asking myself, why is everyone saying Uber, Uber, Uber? No, why is everyone saying OPay, OPay, OPay? So I got to realize that when you send money using OPay, it goes to the person receives it immediately. Okay, but sometimes when you use our conventional banks,
Yeah.
it might take hours or even days before they receive their money. So I did my research. I discovered that OPay has data centers very, very close to the customers. In almost every major city, they have facilities to make the data close to the customer. So that's what latency is all about. So if you're an enterprise customer, you want to get your business as closest to the customer as possible so that they do not complain about, yeah, you use premium for,
Yeah.
it's
Exactly. Very, 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 very good insight into how to distinguish between premium and storage. I can see when you're looking for immediate response, right, between when you transfer or how you transfer your data, then you should know that premium is the service you need. Thank you very much, MVP Raphael, for that. Awesome. Let's move on to what do you need to consider when making use um, of your storage Azure storage accounts. And of course, listed here are about 6 or let me say 5 points that have been talked about here. One is the durability and availability. You need to consider the secure access. You need to consider scalability, manageability, and data accessibility. Now, MVP Raphael, I would like you to give us some insight onto um, all of these five,
okay.
things or features that needs to be considered when dealing with Azure Storage Accounts. Talking about the durability and availability, secure access, scalability, manageability, and data accessibility. So maybe you
Okay.
can go durability and availability.
Okay, so guys, we are all Nigerians. Okay, this one will be very, very easy to explain because we know that we've all like at one point or the other experienced NEPA failure. Okay, so when they say something is highly available, meaning that NEPA will not take light. Okay, no matter what happens, your data will always be available to the customer. Now, remember, it's not me and you that will use the cloud. People using the cloud are enterprise customers. Okay, enterprise customers are businesses that do not want their customers to ever complain. Okay, let's say MTN. A lot of people depend on MTN. MTN is an enterprise customer. Let's assume that MTN does not want anyone to say, I'm not. Yeah, MTN would have to use the cloud. Now, the cloud have what they call you so the cloud have availability zones. Okay, what is an availability zones? You have 3 or more data centers that have their independent power, networking, electricity connected together. So in an availability zone, if one data center fails, Microsoft within a few seconds will go and pull the data from another place. So to make sure that you do not get disappointed. Okay, now if it's geo, if it, you can Microsoft can also get your data, can also sync your data into another region entirely. Now, a region is a geographical location on Earth. So let's assume that Lagos is a region, Ibadan is a region. If the whole of Lagos region is failing, now remember that a region will have availability zones and a region will have data center. If the whole of Lagos region is failing, Microsoft can go and pull your data from Ibadan region. So that's to tell you that as someone that is using the cloud, you save your data in the cloud to be able to reach your customers. You will never go off because of the facilities that Microsoft has put in place. I hope that I've answered that one.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Thank you very much for that, Raphael. It's also very interesting to note that, right? um, the, there are things Microsoft put in place, just like what MVP Raphael said. Microsoft had put in place some features to make sure that it is your data which you're storing in the storage account is what durable and available. And just
Mm,
like what Raphael said, there's what we call the what's the word? HAA. It's more like what you do for a skill set. So
mm,
you can decide to have a primary zone where you want your data to be. And one thing, guys, you should always notice, you are in control. Yes, Microsoft built the platform, but they give you the control to do what you want. So what do I mean by this? You may decide that, okay, I don't want to take my data outside of a particular region. Or let's say you want your data to be in Europe, or you want your data to be in US, all of those regions. You have the right to decide where in US you want your data to be, because there are availability zones for each of these regions, right? So it's interesting to know that all you just need to go do is you select where you want to be your primary platform and where you want to be your backup platform or your secondary platform. And then Microsoft has already the inbuilt structure to ensure that while your data is present for you in the primary region, if there's any failure of any kind, right, your data will be available for you from your secondary region. Apparently, what happens at that time is that if there's a downtime in the primary region, there is already a inbuilt infrastructure in Microsoft that switches to the secondary region, thereby making the secondary region the primary region at that instant or point in time. Awesome. So, Raphael, regarding the secure access, why would you say the Azure storage is secure? What have you seen in your experience to tell
okay.
me, okay, the data is secure in Azure?
Okay, I want to look at it from two perspectives. Okay, the general perspective, that's number one. Now I'm going to come to the smaller perspective. Now, from the general perspective, I don't know if you've seen an onion before. An onion is usually in layers. Okay, you go to the small part inside the middle part of the onion. Now, the way the onion is, each layer, each peel of the onion is actually a layer of protection. Now, if something is saved in Microsoft's cloud, your data is the thing that is in the middle. Okay, so each of those layer is actually something related to Microsoft. One of the layer can be the fence of the data center. Another layer can be the security guard that has been placed there. Another layer can be the firewall, general firewall. So Microsoft has secured you the customer, so that this is usually called this is what Microsoft calls defense in depth. That's number one. Then number two, Microsoft has given you, the user, the ability to have fine-grained controls. So you have the option of using a private IP address. Okay, you can create a private endpoint that your data would not pass through public channels and all that. So when you add all this together, you know that yes, someone that is using Microsoft Cloud does not need to be afraid. Their data is really secured. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I mean, just some few moments ago, you mentioned one key thing for me, which was the private endpoint. And I remember I was working on a project recently where we needed to make use of the storage account, but then we didn't want any form of internet traffic. So
Mm,
you can imagine how we were able to do all of the things we were able to do, and we were able to hit the storage account, we were able to save stuff in the storage account without going through the internet. That tells you that Microsoft Azure in itself, has already thought about things even before you thought about them, right? And
yes.
the
Yeah.
amazing thing is that even if for now you have some features in mind that are not in Azure, of course, you can raise up a kind of a feature request, and then Microsoft would later then look into this. So that is the beautiful thing we have in Azure. The fact that you can actually host or build various resources in the Azure platform, and each of these resources can communicate amongst themselves even without going through the internet. Because one major feature you have is what the Azure Backbone Network, which is the network which Azure makes use of. This network in itself it's able to reach the internet, but still within the network, you are not in the internet. So all of the Azure resources can communicate on this network and get things done as it should. All right, another thing again is scalability. Tell me, why do you say the Azure Storage account is scalable? What is your reason?
Okay, so I want to give a little example. Now, promise you tell me, I don't know if you know our Nigerian presenters. Maybe you know Raphael Husseini.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
So let's assume that let's assume I fry akara, and I fry the most wonderful akara on my street. Okay, sweet akara with fish, with everything. You eat one, you want to eat like three. Okay, so now let's assume that all of a sudden, Raphael Husseini comes to where I'm selling akara, and he buys like two. Okay, and he goes to his Arise TV and he talks about my akara. What do you think is going to happen to me the next day?
People are going to rush to your spots.
Exactly. Now, I am going to have if I was using 2 pots to fry before, it means that I need to buy 10 now. If I was having like 5 assistants, it means I'm going to have like maybe 15 or 20 more assistants. Now, this will put a strain on me. This will put an immediate strain on me. But in Azure, no matter the extra capacity that you need, if you need 8,000, Azure has made everything in place for you to be able to withstand the traffic. So even if 1 million people are coming all of a sudden, you have the facility to be able to handle these requests. That's what scalability is all about. Azure can handle the traffic no matter the number.
Amazing. And it's interesting. Recently, I was making use of an Azure file share, and I from the latest data I got, Azure file share has the ability to store over 100 TB of data, 100 terabytes. So, if for those of you who don't understand what a terabyte is a terabyte is 1,000 or 1 million of a gig. A gig, right? It's 1,000 of a gig for 1 terabyte. Right? Now, imagine having 100,000 of a gig
on a single file share.
Wow, that's massive.
It is. Massive. Microsoft has invested a lot on this technology so that we don't have to stress ourselves. They can give us. We don't have to stress ourselves. That's the beauty of the cloud.
I'm telling you, it's really the beauty of the cloud. The fact that you get what you want as fast as possible without having to bother about what needs to be done to make use of that. All you know is you request, you get it. I mean, that is amazing. To me, that is really amazing. Yeah, you also spoke, one of the things this document telling us is that the storage account you need to consider the manageability. So what can you tell us about this? When you're talking about considering the manageability for your Azure Storage account, what can you tell us about this?
It just tells you about how data stored in the storage account is accessed. Typically, it will be accessed over the internet, and there are certain protocols that we use. Okay, anything you're using over is either HTTP or HTTPS. So whether you are in Zamfara, okay, or in the deepest forest of Sambisa, and you need to use something that is stored in Microsoft Cloud, or you are in Antarctica, or maybe you are in the most remote village of Zambia. Okay, so long as you have an internet connection, you will be able to access it. That's just as simple as that. That's what this talks about.
Awesome, awesome. And I think one of the beautiful things to note is the fact that you don't need to worry about maintenance, updates, critical issues, because all of these things are already handled by Microsoft Azure. So it relieves you of all of the stress of saying, okay, one server is down or one region is down. You don't need to bother about that. Microsoft Azure is
Exactly.
going to do all of that for you. Now we're talking about the last feature, which is data accessibility. What can you tell us about data accessibility in terms of Azure
Okay.
Storage
I
Account?
think I just mentioned I missed the question. I was thinking of data accessibility for manageability. So I just explained accessibility. Okay, so it can be accessed everywhere. Okay, so if you want to
Yeah,
use the graphical user interface which Microsoft has provided for us, it
yeah.
is Azure Portal. If you do things programmatically, you can use Azure CLI or PowerShell. Okay, if you then mostly, just like I said earlier on, the data in the storage account can be accessed over the internet using the protocol of HTTP or the secure one, which is HTTPS.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I mean, this is really, really lovely. While you were speaking, something came to my mind, right? And this is, I would say it's not really, really in total relation to this, but of course,
Mm,
we make use of lots of tools to manage our data in Azure, right? Or to
mm.
manipulate the data we have in Azure. Now, I want to personally ask MVP Raphael, what is your common choice of tool to manage your data in Azure? In terms of probably you're writing a script for a pipeline or you're writing some script to be able to copy data from one point to the other. Which of the tools do you prefer? Do you like working with Bash, PowerShell, or do you like to go hands-on and make use of the Azure storage solution that Microsoft Azure has, or do you prefer the Azure CLI? Yeah, I was referring
Well,
to Azure Storage Explorer.
well, well, because the truth about it is, I work with a lot of things and I like to keep things simple. Okay, I don't want to complicate my life. So if I'm working with a technology, I always prefer using the simplest tool for that. So I've chosen Azure CLI. So if I don't use Azure CLI, I use PowerShell most of the time.
Awesome,
My
awesome.
choice. My
I think
choice.
that this same thing happens to me, and people ask me a lot, why do you decide to go for things like Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell? I'm like, look, you are making use of a technology, and these tools are the native tools of the technology. Of course, it makes more sense that those tools are going to be able to do a lot of functions that so many other tools may not be able to do. And then you can easily manipulate your data making use of these tools. And I keep telling
Exactly.
people that, man, one of the things I enjoy when working with Azure is PowerShell and AZCLI. I mean, it can't be overemphasized when you're talking to
Exactly.
me like these tools are very, very core tools for me, which I feel that anyone who is working with Microsoft Azure should have an understanding of. All right, let's move on to exploring Azure Storage Service. Now, when we are looking at Azure Storage Service, is there anything in particular that comes to your mind? MVP
No,
Raphael?
we've talked about this. No, listen,
Oh,
guys, every single thing on your computer. Okay, hold on. Um, data is usually stored in ones and zeros. We
mhm,
all know. Okay,
mhm,
so anything that is not stored in so anything that is not stored in one and zero will be actually unstructured.
mhm,
Okay, I mean,
mhm,
I don't know if
mhm.
I'm missing things, or will be unstructured.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
all the things in your computer, whether it's video, whether it's PDF, or whether it's they're all unstructured data. And guess where they
yeah,
will enter? They will enter the first one that I'm seeing on that screen.
yeah. Awesome. And it's interesting to know that even before we started we started going deep dive into this, we actually spoke of the blob storage, the file storage, the queue storage, and table
Exactly.
storage. So I mean, these are amazing things, and we don't necessarily have to follow the line of this template for us to give you information. While
Mm,
we speak, we're actually giving you deep dive details you can actually find in maybe the end of this slide or something like that. So audience,
right.
just pay attention and listen to what we are actually saying. So
Oh,
you can see here.
excuse me, promise. I think we might even skip this slide, but there's something I want to bring up. Before we started this meeting, we're discussing about um a specific, I think, would I call it part or exam that Microsoft has put in place for anyone that wants to be a storage expert. Maybe
Yeah.
you might want to share the screen and let talk about it. Maybe our audience can get to know more about it.
Yes. So one of the interesting things, right, for you to be able to pass your is a 104 exam is that you have to have a good idea of storage. I think this storage takes about 10 to 15% of your exam questions. Raphael, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
Awesome. Also, regarding the question you asked, are there other things you would like to add regarding the topic you raised just now?
Uh, okay, so okay, let me just share my screen.
All
I don't think
right.
I opened it.
Yeah.
Let me share my
Are you
screen.
able to see
If
my other screen?
not sure. I'm not
Uh,
sure. No.
yeah.
Yeah. I can see your screen. I can see your screen. So the question I asked you is related to applied skills certification. Okay. So
Oh, okay.
some of you here might I mean, maybe the discussion that we have been discussing since morning, maybe it has been giving you that itch. I was, oh man, I really want to be a storage expert. So if you want to be a storage expert with regards to Microsoft technology, Microsoft has something for you, and it's called Apply Skills. So that is what I actually wanted to talk about. And you can see my screen here. Yeah, this is it. So secure storage for Azure File and Blob Storage. Okay, so if you go through the modules, they're about this. There's a guided project. You go through the modules. Microsoft has provided a free exam. It's free for now. The exam is free for now. I don't know if it's going to be free next year or within the year, because the truth about it is Linux Foundation has this kind of skills certificates, but they are not free. Each one is $79. So this is just a little bit thing outside the topic that we're discussing. If you're interested in becoming an expert with regards to Microsoft technology, there is something for you. No, sorry, with regards to Microsoft storage, there is something that you can work towards an end. So that's just what I wanted to say. You can continue, promise.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Raphael. Thank you very
No
much
problem.
for that. All right. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Let me know if you're able to see my screen. All right.
Yes, I can
Yes,
see your screen.
we've spoken about the Azure file share, the various types of shares we have, right? Which is the Azure Blob Storage, the Azure Files, the queue storage, and the table storage. And then in terms of the Azure Blob Storage, we've spoken about containers. And
Mm,
besides, containers are really this small micro unit where you get to keep your blobs, where you get
mm.
to document your files, your streaming video, or your audio. Those are um, what you call the containers. Also, in terms of your Azure files, recently I was speaking and I mentioned the fact that we made use of Azure files and we mounted the Azure files inside of a container of an application running on a
Mm,
Kubernetes cluster. And then we're able to store in the logs, we're able to store in the data from those applications running in a Kubernetes cluster inside of the Azure file shares. I mean, I feel that was really, really awesome. For your queue storage, this basically is, those of you who use Kafka and all of those things, you're able to make use of this and also to upload messages, send messages, and all of that. Also, you can make use of your Azure functions to retrieve your message from
Right.
queues and
Right.
create your thumbnails. For your Azure table storage, those of you who deal with non-structured data or no SQL, you can make use of what? Your Azure table storage. Awesome. Now, we also have spoken about things to consider when choosing Azure storage services. Yes, in the last one, we spoke about durability, we spoke about accessibility, we spoke about security. Now, we are looking at, in terms of your configuration plan for your Azure storage, what are the prominent features you need to consider? Now, the article here says you need to consider your storage optimization for massive data. You need to consider your storage for high availability. You need to consider your storage for messaging and your storage
Yes.
for structured data.
Structured data.
Correct me if I'm wrong, MVP Raphael, but what I am thinking is that this is just in relation to the various types of services we have in the Azure storage, just like your blob, your files, your queue, and your table storage. I think they are kind of relating that to these features which we need to consider. What do you think, MVP Raphael?
Yes, you're right, because you see that a typical enterprise application, let's take your bank application, for example, okay? So you need to consider the fact that you might need you will be getting massive amount of data, especially if you do a lot of marketing campaigns, you become popular. So you need to consider the fact that the data will be large. So the first one, you need to consider that you don't want to disappoint your customers. You don't want to disappoint your customers, so you make it highly available. So the second one, then what if you start getting certain kind of messages from that app? Where do you store them? So when you have an enterprise application, when you don't just like say, okay, let's just do this. No, you make sure that the storage service has every little thing that you will need to be able to to give your application the best. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, MVP Raphael. So we'll move on. We'll move on to discuss about the storage account types, and let's see how we can be able to distinguish the various account types. So as you can see here, we have various account types for our storage accounts, and the very first one mentioned here is the standard general purpose V2, the premium block blobs, premium file shares, and the premium page blobs. And maybe Raphael, what can you tell us about the different types of the storage accounts?
Okay, so I think the very first one is for general use. Okay, if whatever you want to do, you don't want to spend money on.
Yes, so looks like I'm having MVP Raphael, or probably he's having a freeze. Yes, or what I say is mine, but I don't think so. Probably he's going to join us. Um, he's going to join us back. But generally, just like as I was saying, you have these four types, or what are I would call them, the various options which you need to consider that support your what? Your storage account. And the very first one, which is what? The standard general V2. And you can see that this is a kind of storage account that is mostly used for storing things like blob, your file share, your queues, and all of those things. And that is why it's called the standard general purpose V2. Why? Because it's mostly for what? Blob storage, queue storage, and it supports table storage and Azure Files. Also, you have the premium block blobs. And one of the interesting things that the premium block blob does is that what? it helps you to store your blob storage, including what? Data lake storage. Also, speaking about your premium file shares, you can see that basically your premium file shares support what? The Azure files. And then talking of your premium page blobs, those basically support what? Page blobs in Azure. Awesome. So now we spoke a lot about availability. And I was also, while I was trying to speak with MVP Raphael, one of the things we were trying to do was to give you the technology that is actually behind, you know, that availability. If you remember the scenario where we spoke about the fact that, I mean, your storage is always available for you, right? There are certain, um, would I say, configurations or functions that have been put in place to ensure that your data is always available for you. And that is why we are speaking about what? Replication strategies. These replication strategies are what are responsible for ensuring that you have high availability of your data, right? Now, we have four major replication strategies. One is the what? The locally redundant storage. Two, two is what? The zone redundant storage. Three is the geo-redundant storage. And four, you have the geo-zone redundant storage. MVP Raphael, you're welcome back. I
Thank
understand
you
you
very
must have
much. Sorry for the
connection.
yes.
Awesome. Now, to round up this series for today, I want you to just give us some few insights on what these four replication strategies are all about. Remember earlier while we were speaking, we made mention of the fact that any data you put in Azure Storage Account is
Mm.
always highly available. And
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, these are the features that are put in place to ensure that anytime you put a data in Azure, they are always available. Now, please, can
Perfect.
you shed light on us to what we call locally redundant storage?
Okay, so there are some clients that will be very, very stingy. Let me put it stingy because they don't know the implication of their stinginess on their application. So you might get a client requirement that says that, "Oh, we don't have money. Okay, we don't have money. We just want to do this only." So at that point, you know that you have to store it in a locally redundant storage, meaning that that data is just stored in only one place, and the only kind of protection they have against downtime is just rack and server. Okay, stored in one place. If anything happens to that data center, their application, their data is gone. Okay, when they say zone redundant, remember we talked about availability zone, meaning that in an availability zone, you have one or two data centers that are connected together with low latency. So if this data center in this zone is where your data was stored, is having issues, your data will be saved in another place. I mean, you have zone protection working for you, so that in case one data center fail, this other one in that zone can help you. Now, when you say geo meaning that geo, it's talking about geographical location. Okay, immediately you hear geo, meaning that they are considering the whole region. So I will say the whole Lagos region, your data is paired to be saved in another region. Okay, so let's say your data was originally saved in Lagos. If you're using geo-redundant storage, your data is also going to be saved in another region like Ibadan. So if the whole Lagos goes out, Ibadan is there for you to make sure that you do not disappoint your customer. Then when you are saying geo-zone, meaning you have regional protection, you have.
Awesome. It means that yes, you have regional protection and you have zonal protection. So you have, even in those different locations, like Raphael said, both in Lagos and in Ibadan, you have zones in those regions, right? So you are dealing with although you are dealing with two different regions, but also you are dealing with zones in each of those regions. And I think that is what actually makes this wonderful service in Azure awesome. Awesome because the availability is really, really, really high. All right. At this point in time, I think we'll be rounding off our session for today. Left to me, I feel that this has been an amazing session. It has really been an amazing session. I know MVP Raphael is probably dealing with some internet connectivity issues, but I know that will be resolved soon. So, like I said, generally, this session has been really, really amazing, discussing about Azure Storage Accounts and all of the things we can do with Azure Storage Account and understanding what are the key features in Azure Storage Account. And I feel like that is really, really awesome. Welcome back, MVP Raphael.
Thank you.
We are
Sorry
around
for the
no problem, no problem. I was able to explain that, but generally we are rounding off the session for today. I don't know, can you give us a few words, just summarize what Azure Storage Account is all about, and then we can close the session for today.
Okay, so I think that was what I said at the beginning, and still what I'm going to say in the end. Okay, let me use another example. Your not your living room, your bedroom. Okay, your bedroom has wardrobes, okay, for you to store your clothes. Okay, so the same way you cannot just go buy clothes and just dump them on the floor, dump them on the bed. You need a wardrobe to keep things organized. That's how it is as well. Okay, you need a place to keep your stuff organized, and Azure Storage is that guy when you're considering the cloud with regards to with regards to Microsoft Cloud. Azure Storage is your guy for keeping your stuff organized. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. All right. Thank you very much, MVP Raphael. And on this note, we'll be rounding out the session for today. Yes, please stay tuned. Please stay tuned. We have more and more interesting sessions and topics we are going to be informing you with. So please subscribe to our channel, stay updated, and we will keep you posted on the various topics we are going to be discussing on the Azure Diner series. At this point in time, I would like to say thank you all. My name is none other than Promise Uche Nwanchukwu, your MVP for the Azure category. And on this session, I have been discussing with none other than Raphael Gab-Momoh, who is also an MVP for the Azure category. Raphael, last words, or would I just say bye?
See you guys next week. See you guys next week. We can't wait to discuss more exciting topics with you. Bye for now.
Awesome. Bye-bye, guys. See you later, everyone.